Have you ever walked into a place that felt heavy, like something unseen was pressing down on the room? Have you ever wondered why light and darkness can't exist in the same space? Why truth always exposes what hides in the shadows? And what if you witnessed with your own eyes evil bowing before the authority of Jesus and being forced to leave? In Mark 1:21-28, we find one of the earliest and most striking moments in Jesus' public ministry. The day he cast out an impure spirit in the synagogue of Capernaum. It's not just a story of spiritual power, it's a revelation of divine authority, a glimpse of how heaven confronts hell, and a reminder that no darkness can stand in the presence of the Son of God. The story begins with Jesus and his newly called disciples entering Capernaum, a small fishing village by the Sea of Galilee. It's the Sabbath, and Jesus goes into the synagogue, the heart of Jewish worship and teaching. The people there expect another ordinary Sabbath, perhaps hearing familiar words from the law or the prophets, but this day will be anything but ordinary. When Jesus begins to teach, something immediately feels different. Mark writes that the people were astonished at his teaching because he taught them as one who had authority, not as the teachers of the law. For generations, the scribes and rabbis had taught by quoting others, citing traditions, ancient commentaries, and respected voices. Their authority came from repetition, from knowledge, from structure. But Jesus' words carried something more, a living power that went beyond explanation. He didn't quote others to prove truth, he was the truth. Imagine sitting in that synagogue. You've heard countless sermons before, but this is different. His words pierce deeper. They awaken something inside you. It feels as if heaven itself is speaking. Not about God, but from God. And then suddenly the atmosphere shifts. A man in the synagogue begins to cry out, his voice twisted and tormented. Everyone turns. His face is contorted with fear and rage as another voice speaks through him, not his own. "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." The crowd gasps. They had been wondering who Jesus truly was, and now from the mouth of a possessed man, the truth bursts forth. The demons know exactly who he is. In a single moment, the spiritual world recognizes the authority that humanity has yet to understand. But Jesus is not shaken. He doesn't back away or react with fear. He simply looks at the man and says, "Be quiet, come out of him." No shouting match, no ritual, no struggle, just a command, and absolute obedience follows. The impure spirit convulses the man, lets out a loud cry, and leaves. The silence that follows is overwhelming. The crowd stares speechless, realizing they have just witnessed something beyond human power. Then whispers ripple through the room. What is this? A new teaching, and with authority. He even gives orders to impure spirits, and they obey him. And immediately, word about Jesus spreads throughout Galilee. This story, though brief, reveals so much about who Jesus is and what his mission represents. From the beginning, his ministry is not just about words, but about power. The kind of authority that changes realities, frees the oppressed, and exposes the invisible battles happening in the human heart. Notice where this moment takes place, not in a graveyard or a remote wilderness, but in the synagogue, the very house of worship. That's significant. Evil doesn't always hide in dark corners. Sometimes it sits quietly in sacred spaces, waiting to remain unchallenged. But when the light of Christ enters, nothing hidden can stay concealed. The possessed man had likely attended the synagogue many times. Perhaps no one had noticed his torment before. But that day, when the presence of Jesus filled the room, the darkness inside him could no longer hide. The truth drew it out. That's the power of Jesus. He doesn't simply speak to the surface, he reaches the soul. When he teaches, when he moves, every false thing trembles. The demonic realm recognizes what human hearts often fail to see, that Jesus is not just a teacher or prophet, but the Holy One of God, the embodiment of divine authority on earth. This scene also teaches us something crucial about spiritual reality. Evil exists, but it cannot stand against Christ's authority. The demon's words are filled with fear. Have you come to destroy us? It knows its time is limited. The presence of Jesus exposes its defeat. And that's true for every form of darkness. Fear, addiction, hatred, guilt, shame. When confronted by the truth of who Jesus is, darkness has no choice but to bow and leave. It's also powerful to notice how Jesus commands the spirit to be silent. The demon speaks truth. It correctly identifies him as the Holy One of God. Yet Jesus silences it. Why? Because truth spoken by evil distorts truth itself. Jesus doesn't need validation from darkness. His authority stands on its own. He speaks not with borrowed power, but with divine certainty. Every word he says carries the same creative force that spoke the universe into existence. That's why when he commands, even demons obey. The people's reaction shows how revolutionary this was. They were used to hearing teachers interpret scripture, but they had never seen someone embody it. They had never witnessed teaching that manifested in real-time deliverance. Jesus didn't just teach about God's power, he demonstrated it. And that's what separates religion from revelation. Religion can describe light, revelation turns on the light. In that moment, the synagogue became a battleground. Truth versus deception, holiness versus evil, freedom versus bondage, and Jesus won effortlessly. That same power is still alive today. The authority of Jesus is not trapped in ancient history, it's active wherever his name is proclaimed. The same spirit that spoke in that synagogue still works to break chains and restore lives. This story reminds us that evil fears exposure. The man's possession wasn't new, but the light was. In the presence of Jesus, hidden things can't stay hidden. That's why his words have always stirred reactions. They comfort the broken, but they also confront the bound. When Jesus speaks, things move, inside us, around us, and within the unseen world. His word doesn't just inform, it transforms. Sometimes we read stories like this and think of them as far removed from modern life. But in truth, every heart without peace, every soul weighed down by lies, every life enslaved by addiction or fear, all are battlegrounds for the same spiritual conflict. And the answer hasn't changed. Jesus, he doesn't need rituals or formulas. His presence alone breaks oppression. His word alone sets people free. The crowd that day witnessed more than deliverance. They saw the beginning of a new era. The authority of heaven had entered earth's space. The kingdom of God was breaking in, and even the forces of hell could not resist it. It's no coincidence that this event happened so early in Mark's gospel. It sets the tone for everything that follows. Jesus came not to blend into the religious system, but to confront the powers of darkness, both spiritual and social. His authority would heal the sick, forgive sinners, and ultimately conquer death itself. But before he faced the cross, he showed the world that even the smallest encounter with his presence is enough to silence evil. The people in that synagogue walked out different than they came in. They had seen what divine authority looks like. And word spread quickly, because when people witness real power, they can't stay silent. This story is not just about Jesus driving out a demon. It's about what happens when truth enters a place that's been living in routine. When he steps into the ordinary, the extraordinary happens. And that same Jesus still walks into the synagogues of our lives, our routines, our struggles, our fears, and speaks freedom. He still exposes what binds us and restores what's been broken. When you read this story, you can almost feel the tension and then the release. The cries of torment turn into silence. The fear turns into awe. The room that once felt oppressed now feels free. That's what his presence does. It changes the atmosphere. And here's the beautiful part. Jesus didn't just free that man. He showed everyone present what freedom looks like. He reminded them and us that the power of God is not distant or theoretical. It's personal. It meets us where we are, even in the middle of our brokenness. The man possessed that day probably came to the synagogue hoping for peace, maybe desperate for help he couldn't explain. He left transformed. And that's the pattern of the gospel. Everyone who truly encounters Jesus leaves changed. This story also gives us courage. It tells us that no darkness, no sin, no oppression is too strong for him. Even when the world feels heavy, his authority still reigns. He doesn't just command demons, he commands storms, sickness, and death itself. Every power that stands against life and truth falls before him. So what does this mean for us today? It means that the same Jesus who spoke freedom in that synagogue still speaks freedom now. The same Spirit that empowered him empowers those who follow him. When his word is proclaimed, when his name is lifted, the forces of darkness tremble still. If you've ever felt trapped, unheard, or unseen, remember this: you are not powerless. The one who speaks with authority over darkness speaks for you. And when he says, "Be free," the chains must break. In Mark 1, the crowd left the synagogue amazed, and perhaps a little afraid, because they realized they were witnessing something that couldn't be explained by human reason. They had encountered holiness in person. That's what happens when we truly meet Jesus. The ordinary gives way to the miraculous, and the familiar becomes sacred. When he teaches, demons flee. When he speaks, hearts awaken. When he moves, the world shifts. And even now, wherever his name is honored, his authority still reigns. Thank you for watching this message. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, follow Holy Path Insights, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that no darkness is too strong for the light of Christ. His authority still drives out fear, still breaks chains, and still sets captives free, today and forever.